The vast military command center hummed with tension as Captain Li Jin's eyes remained fixed on the massive holographic display. The alien vessel hung in Earth's orbit like a predatory bird, its sleek design unlike anything humanity had ever created. The display's blue glow cast eerie shadows across the faces of military personnel gathered in the room, their expressions a mixture of awe and concern. Li Jin had spent 20 years mastering armored warfare, climbing the ranks to become South Korea's foremost expert in tank combat. Yet now, faced with technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics, he felt a strange mix of fascination and unease. The alien ship's surface showed no visible weapons, no conventional propulsion systems, just smooth, dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The room fell silent as the holographic display shifted, showing the alien representative stepping out of their shuttle. Kyo, as he called himself, moved with an almost feline grace. His silvery skin reflected the sunlight, and his four eyes blinked in an unsettling pattern as he surveyed the welcoming committee. "Welcome to Earth," General Thompson said, extending his hand in greeting. Kyo ignored the gesture, his upper eyes focusing on the line of M1 Abrams tanks positioned as an honor guard. His mouth twisted into what might have been a smile, but looked more like a sneer. "How quaint," he said, his universal translator giving his words a metallic echo. "I had heard rumors that your species still relied on ground contact vehicles, but I didn't quite believe it until now." Colonel Park's son, standing at the edge of the gathering, felt her jaw tighten. She'd commanded the K-1 tank battalion through 3 major conflicts, and something about Kyo's dismissive attitude made her combat instincts flare. She watched as the alien strode past the tanks, not even bothering to examine them closely. The briefing that followed was even worse. Kyo's presentation showed their military might. Vehicles that floated effortlessly above the ground, weapons that fired pure energy, and defensive shields that could supposedly stop any physical projectile. "Your species still uses ground-based projectile weapons," Kyo sneered, displaying an image of an M1 Abrams in action. "We abandoned such barbaric methods millennia ago. These machines of yours would be nothing more than target practice for our youngest cadets." Li Jin noticed how the alien's upper eyes kept darting to the various military officers, gauging their reactions. He'd seen that look before, the look of someone trying to intimidate their opponent before a fight. The demonstration outside made Kyo's disdain even clearer. 3 alien vehicles descended from their shuttle, hovering silently 2 meters above the ground. They moved with incredible speed and agility, weaving patterns that would be impossible for any Earthbound vehicle. "Observe true military technology," Kyo announced, as one of the vehicles fired its energy weapon at a target drone. The beam of light turned the drone into vapor instantly. No recoil, no primitive explosives, no need for crude armor. This is how civilized species wage war. Colonel Park's son's hand instinctively moved to the tank commander's insignia on her uniform. 20 years of experience told her that Kyo was making a fundamental mistake, confusing technological advancement with tactical superiority. She'd seen too many battles where the supposedly inferior force had prevailed through superior training, tactics, and determination. As the demonstration continued, Li Jin noticed something interesting. The alien vehicles, for all their impressive technology, followed predictable patterns. They relied entirely on their superior mobility and energy weapons, showing no sign of combined arms tactics or terrain usage. It reminded him of ancient cavalry units that believed speed alone would win their battles. The day ended with Kyo returning to his ship, leaving behind a datapad containing specifications of their military technology, clearly meant to intimidate rather than inform. As the sun set over the military base, Li Jin and Colonel Park's son found themselves looking at the row of M1 Abrams tanks, their armor gleaming in the fading light. "They think we're primitive," Park's son said quietly, running her hand along the tank's composite armor. "They see our technology and assume we're simple." Li Jin nodded, watching as maintenance crews performed their evening checks on the tanks. Every movement was precise, practiced, perfect, the result of centuries of military evolution and experience. "They forget something important," he replied, his voice firm. "These tanks aren't just machines. They're the product of countless battles, endless refinements, and the combined knowledge of generations of warriors. They may have abandoned primitive weapons, but in doing so, they've forgotten the fundamental principles of warfare." As night fell over the base, the alien ship's lights could be seen pulsing in the sky above. Neither officer spoke what they were thinking, but both knew. This wasn't just first contact anymore. This was beginning to feel like the calm before a storm, and humanity's primitive tanks might soon prove far more formidable than their advanced visitors expected. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Changwon proving grounds as a line of M1 Abrams tanks stood ready for inspection. Their massive forms stretched across the landscape like sleeping giants, each one representing decades of human military innovation. The air buzzed with tension as the alien delegation approached, their silver uniforms reflecting the sunlight. Commander Han led the group, his four eyes scanning the assembled tanks with barely concealed contempt. Behind him, 6 other alien officials carried strange devices that hummed and blinked as they took readings. Major Kim Do stood at attention beside his tank, proud of the machine that had served him through countless battles. "Let us begin this assessment," Han announced, his translator making his voice sound artificially smooth. "Though I must say, we could have conducted this remotely. These vehicles seem hardly worth the physical inspection." Kim Do felt his jaw tighten, but maintained his professional demeanor. The alien officials spread out, their scanning devices sweeping over the tanks from every angle. Their expressions shifted between amusement and disbelief as they examined each component. "You mean it still requires physical contact with the ground?" Han asked incredulously, pointing at the tracks. "And these tubes, they fire solid projectiles. How do you even aim such crude weapons?" Kim Do's knuckles whitened as he gripped his tablet, but his voice remained steady. "The M1 Abrams uses advanced fire control systems. We can hit moving targets while moving ourselves, even in poor weather conditions." Han made a dismissive gesture. "Primitive targeting methods. Our vehicles use quantum-locked targeting systems that never miss." The Major watched as one of the alien officials ran his scanner over the tank's composite armor. The device made an unusual chirping sound, causing the official to frown and adjust its settings. "Interesting," the official muttered. "The armor composition is complex. It's a mixture of depleted uranium, ceramic matrices, and other materials," Kim Do explained, noting their confusion with hidden satisfaction. "It's designed to defeat multiple types of threats." Han moved closer to the tank's main gun, his upper eyes narrowing. "And this, you say it fires physical projectiles. At what velocity?" "The 120mm smoothbore gun can launch depleted uranium rounds at approximately 1,750 meters per second, Kim Do replied, watching their reactions carefully. "The kinetic energy alone is enough to—" "Obsolete," Han interrupted. "Energy weapons are far superior. No recoil, no need for physical ammunition storage, instant target effect." The assessment continued through the morning as the aliens examined every aspect of the tank. They scoffed at the diesel engine, laughed at the manual backup systems, and dismissed the crew compartment as wastefully large. Yet Kim Do noticed something interesting. They kept returning to scan the armor, each time adjusting their devices differently. "Show us this vehicle in motion," Han demanded finally. "Let us see how it performs." Kim Do climbed into the commander's position, his crew already in place. The Abrams turbine engine roared to life, its distinctive sound echoing across the proving grounds. The aliens stepped back, visibly startled by the noise. What followed was a display of everything the Abrams could do. The tank accelerated with surprising speed, executed tight turns, and demonstrated its ability to rotate in place. Kim Do ordered his gunner to engage practice targets, the main gun booming as it hit target after target with perfect accuracy. Crude, but I suppose effective enough against other primitive weapons, Han commented, though Kim Do noticed he had taken several steps back when the main gun fired. Of course, against our energy shields, such weapons would be useless. As the demonstration ended, Kim Do noticed one of the alien officials quietly running calculations on his device. The official's expression showed concern, quickly hidden when Han looked his way. "We have seen enough," Han announced. "Your vehicles are exactly as primitive as we expected. You would be wise to accept our offer of technological assistance." As the alien delegation departed, Kim Do stood beside his tank, running his hand along its warm armor. 20 years of combat experience told him the aliens were making a crucial mistake. They saw the Abrams as outdated technology, but they failed to understand that every part of it, from its armor to its weapons, had been refined through actual combat experience. The alien's dismissive attitude reminded him of something his first tank commander had told him: never underestimate a weapon that's proven itself in battle. Theory is one thing, but combat is another. Looking up at the alien ship hovering in the distance, Kim Do allowed himself a small smile. The aliens might have advanced technology, but they had forgotten something important. In real combat, it's not always the most advanced weapon that wins, but the one best suited for the fight. As the sun reached its peak, Kim Do's crew began their maintenance checks, each movement precise and practiced. The aliens might mock their primitive machine, but he knew the truth. The M1 Abrams was far more than just a tank. It was the result of generations of warfare experience, and soon enough, the aliens would learn just how dangerous primitive weapons could be. The massive underground chamber of the United Earth Defense Council fell silent as General Yoon took her place at the podium. The holographic displays behind her showed live feeds from around the world. Alien ships hovering over major cities, their dark shapes casting ominous shadows on the ground below. The faces of 200 military leaders from every nation looked up at her, waiting for words that no one wanted to hear. 12 hours ago, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The Alien Confederation delivered their final message. They demand Earth's complete surrender within 48 hours. If we refuse, they promise to demonstrate their military superiority in a way that will, in their words, leave no doubt about the futility of resistance. The chamber erupted in angry murmurs. General Yoon waited for the noise to die down before continuing. They believe their technology makes them invincible. They see our weapons as relics, our tactics as primitive, and our resistance as futile. Deep beneath the council chamber, in a massive underground hangar, Sergeant Choi heard the announcement over the base speakers. His hands never stopped moving as he performed the final checks on his M1 Abrams tank. The familiar smell of oil and metal filled the air as hundreds of tank crews prepared for what might be humanity's last stand. Back in the council chamber, General Yoon displayed the alien battle plans they'd managed to intercept. They planned to target our major military installations first, using their energy weapons from high altitude. They believe this will eliminate our ability to resist without risking their ground forces. They're overconfident, she stated firmly, pointing to their formation patterns. They've never faced anything like our armored divisions. Their entire strategy assumes we'll fight the way they expect us to fight. In the hangar, Sergeant Choi's crew worked with practiced efficiency. Private Lee checked the ammunition stores while Corporal Park ran diagnostics on the fire control system. The tank's turbine engine hummed with barely contained power, like a predator ready to pounce. Our advantage, General Yoon continued, is that they've shown us everything while we've shown them nothing. They demonstrated their weapons, their shields, their tactics, all to intimidate us. But in doing so, they've given us the information we need. She brought up detailed analysis of the alien shields. Their defense systems are optimized against energy weapons like their own. They've never needed to defend against kinetic energy weapons of our scale. Our tanks, which they mock as primitive, may be their undoing. Sergeant Choi climbed into the commander's position of his tank, running his hands over the familiar controls. Through the periscope, he could see hundreds of other tanks being prepared, their crews moving with the same determined precision. The massive hangar doors began to open, revealing the night sky above. We've analyzed their flight patterns, their weapon systems, and their tactical doctrine. General Yoon's voice continued over the speakers. They rely completely on their technological superiority. They have no concept of combined arms warfare, no experience with electronic warfare countermeasures, and most importantly, no respect for what they're facing. The ground trembled as tanks began moving into position. Sergeant Choi's gunner, Corporal Kim, ran through target acquisition drills, his movements quick and precise. They had trained for this moment their entire careers, even if they hadn't known it. The aliens expect us to surrender, General Yoon's voice carried through the complex. They expect us to be intimidated by their ships, their weapons, their ultimatum. They expect us to behave like a primitive species facing a superior force. In the tank, Sergeant Choi checked his tactical display. Green dots showed hundreds of tanks moving into predetermined positions across the country. The plan was simple but effective. Let the aliens think they had won before revealing humanity's true strength. We have 24 hours to position our forces, General Yoon concluded. 24 hours to prepare the largest coordinated military operation in human history. The aliens believe they're facing a primitive species armed with obsolete weapons. In 48 hours, they'll learn just how wrong they are. As the last light of day faded, Sergeant Choi's tank rolled out of the hangar along with hundreds of others. The massive machines moved silently through the darkness, taking up positions in carefully prepared hiding spots. Above them, alien ships patrolled lazily, their sensors never detecting the threat below. The M1 Abrams engine hummed quietly as Sergeant Choi and his crew settled in for the long wait. They were just one tank among thousands, all waiting for the moment to show the aliens exactly what primitive weapons could do. In the darkness of his commander's position, Sergeant Choi allowed himself a grim smile. The aliens had made their ultimatum, but they had no idea what kind of response they were about to receive. The night grew deeper as humanity prepared for what would either be its finest hour or its last stand. But in tanks across the world, crews like Sergeant Choi's waited with quiet confidence. They might be using what the aliens called primitive weapons, but these weapons had been forged in centuries of warfare, refined by generations of experience, and were about to teach the aliens a lesson they would never forget. The night sky over Incheon glowed with an eerie purple light as alien vessels descended through the clouds. Commander Lee watched through his thermal optics as the massive ships moved into position, their energy weapons casting strange shadows across the urban landscape. From his command post, buried deep in a reinforced bunker, he could see 30 concealed M1 Abrams tanks scattered throughout the carefully prepared killing zone. All units maintained radio silence. He whispered into his headset, "Wait for my mark." The alien ships moved with arrogant confidence, their sensors sweeping the ground below. They had no idea that each building, each piece of rubble, had been carefully positioned to hide the heat signatures of the waiting tanks. Years of urban warfare experience had taught humanity how to become invisible, even to the most advanced technology. Commander Lee's hands tightened on his binoculars as he watched the alien ground forces deploy. Their hovering vehicles glided smoothly from the transport ships, energy weapons humming with deadly power. The aliens moved in perfect formation, exactly as their doctrine dictated, and exactly as Earth's military leaders had predicted. "They're so predictable," Lee muttered to himself, watching the alien forces advance. Their vehicles maintained precise spacing, never deviating from their programmed patterns. They didn't check corners, didn't use cover, didn't show any of the caution that centuries of warfare had drilled into human soldiers. The first alien vehicle passed the outer marker. Lee's finger hovered over his radio trigger, but he waited. More alien craft followed, moving deeper into the trap. Their energy weapons swept back and forth, searching for targets that weren't where they expected them to be. "Wait for it," Lee commanded softly over the radio. "Let them get closer." He could almost feel the tension in each tank crew. 30 gunners had their fingers on their triggers. 30 loaders stood ready beside their guns. 30 drivers kept their engines quietly idling. The M1 Abrams tanks were predators waiting to pounce, their 120mm guns loaded with depleted uranium rounds. The alien commander's vessel moved into the center of the kill zone. Lee watched through his thermal scope as more alien craft followed, clustering together in what they thought was a safe formation. Their shields glowed faintly, creating a false sense of security. "Almost," Lee whispered. "Almost." The aliens began their standard scanning pattern, their sensors searching for the primitive weapons their intelligence had warned them about. But they were looking in the wrong places, searching for heat signatures at ground level, while the tanks lurked in basement parking structures and behind carefully constructed false walls. "Now," Lee's command cracked across the radio. "All units, fire." 30 M1 Abrams tanks fired simultaneously. The night erupted in a symphony of thunder as depleted uranium rounds streaked toward their targets at nearly 2 kilometers per second. The alien shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been tissue paper against the kinetic force of the tank rounds. The alien commander's vessel disappeared in a ball of fire. Before the aliens could react, a second volley slammed into their formation. Hover vehicles exploded, their anti-gravity systems failing catastrophically as depleted uranium penetrators tore through their cores. "Shift targets," Lee ordered. "Execute pattern Delta." The tanks began moving even as they fired, emerging from their hiding spots in a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. The aliens tried to respond, their energy weapons firing wildly at the sudden threat, but the M1 Abrams tanks were already shifting positions, using the urban terrain exactly as they had trained to do. Lee watched with grim satisfaction as the alien formation collapsed into chaos. Their perfect spacing disappeared as vehicles tried to escape, only to run into pre-sighted killing zones. The aliens had no doctrine for this kind of combat, no experience with an enemy that could punch through their shields with primitive kinetic weapons. "All units advance," Lee commanded. "Push them back to their landing zones." The M1 Abrams tanks surged forward, their tracks crushing debris beneath them as they pressed their advantage. The aliens tried to regroup, tried to form defensive positions, but they had never trained for this. They had never faced an enemy that combined modern technology with centuries of tactical experience. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, the killing zone was littered with the burning wreckage of alien vehicles. Their energy weapons, their advanced shields, their anti-gravity technology, none of it had saved them from the brutal efficiency of human tank warfare. Commander Lee stepped out of his command post as the sun began to rise over Incheon. The M1 Abrams tanks were already regrouping, their crews performing quick maintenance checks before moving to their next positions. In the distance, he could see alien ships frantically lifting off, retreating from a battlefield they had expected to dominate. "Send word to High Command," he ordered his communications officer. "First engagement successful. Enemy forces retreating. Minimal casualties on our side." He paused, then added with a grim smile, "And tell them the aliens just learned why you don't underestimate human tanks." As the morning light revealed the full extent of the destruction, Lee knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back, and they would be angry. But now they knew. Earth's primitive weapons were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Colonel Park's mobile command center rumbled across the battlefield as screens displayed the positions of hundreds of M1 Abrams tanks advancing across the Korean peninsula. The alien forces were in disarray, their perfect formations shattered by the unexpected ferocity of Earth's counterattack. Smoke from burning alien vessels filled the morning sky, casting an otherworldly haze over the landscape. "Status report," Park demanded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where blue dots representing human tanks moved in practiced formations against the red markers of alien positions. 3rd Division has broken through their northern flank, her operations officer reported. The aliens are trying to regroup, but they can't maintain formation under our artillery barrages. Park nodded, watching as another group of tanks executed a perfect pincer movement. The aliens had never seen anything like this before, centuries of human military doctrine coming alive on the battlefield. While they had been developing fancy technology, humanity had been perfecting the art of war itself. They never understood, she told her staff, pointing to the tactical display. While they were perfecting anti-gravity technology, we were perfecting the art of war. Every movement you see out there represents lessons learned in blood. The command center shook as distant explosions echoed across the battlefield. Through the reinforced windows, Park could see M1 Abrams tanks moving through smoke screens, their forms appearing and disappearing like ghosts. The aliens' sophisticated sensors, designed to detect energy signatures, were proving useless against such basic battlefield tactics. Launch the next phase, Park ordered. Tell the 7th Armored to begin their advance. 50 tanks emerged from hidden positions, their tracks churning up the earth as they moved forward. The aliens responded predictably, their hover vehicles rising higher to gain a better firing position. It was exactly what Park had been waiting for. Now, she commanded, activate the underground charges. Explosions ripped through the battlefield, not aimed at the alien vehicles themselves, but at the ground beneath them. The shock waves disrupted their anti-gravity fields, sending several vehicles crashing to the ground. The M1 Abrams tanks seized the moment, their main guns roaring as they targeted the grounded alien craft. They never considered fighting an enemy from below, Park commented as alien vehicles exploded one after another. Their technology made them forget the basics of three-dimensional warfare. The aliens tried to counterattack, their energy weapons lighting up the sky. But the human forces had already learned their weaknesses. Tanks would fire and immediately move, never staying still long enough to be targeted. Smoke screens and chaff confused the alien targeting systems, while precise artillery fire kept them from forming effective combat groups. Look at their formation, Park pointed out to her staff. They're still trying to fight according to their doctrine. They can't adapt. She was right. The alien vehicles maintained their prescribed spacing even as it made them vulnerable to flanking attacks. They followed their programmed attack patterns, even when those patterns led them into prepared kill zones. Their advanced technology had become a weakness, making them predictable and inflexible. All units, execute Plan Delta, Park ordered. The M1 Abrams tanks began their coordinated advance, using terrain features that the hovering alien vehicles ignored. They struck from angles the aliens didn't expect, their depleted uranium rounds tearing through shields that had never been designed to stop kinetic weapons. "Ma'am," her communications officer called out, "we're picking up alien transmissions. They're calling for reinforcements." Park smiled grimly. "Good. That means they're learning respect for these primitive weapons of ours." The battle continued through the morning as more alien ships arrived, only to face an enemy that refused to fight according to their expectations. Human tanks used buildings as cover, fired through smoke screens, and coordinated their attacks with artillery and infantry support. It was warfare as humanity had perfected it over centuries, and the aliens had no answer for it. They thought technology alone would win their battles, Park said, watching as another alien formation broke under concentrated tank fire. They forgot that war is an art as much as a science. By midday, the alien forces were in full retreat. Their elegant formations had been shattered, their sophisticated weapons proved ineffective, and their confidence completely broken. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of their advanced vehicles, while the M1 Abrams tanks continued their relentless advance. "Send word to High Command," Park ordered as she watched the alien ships flee into the upper atmosphere. The counter-offensive was successful. Enemy forces are retreating on all fronts. She turned to her staff, their faces tired but proud. "Today we taught them something important. It's not the technology that wins wars. It's the warriors who use it. and humanity has been creating warriors for a very, very long time. As the sun began to set, Park's mobile command center moved forward with the advancing tanks. The aliens might return with new weapons or different tactics, but they would never again underestimate humanity's ability to wage war. The M1 Abrams tanks had proven that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the most advanced. It's the one backed by centuries of combat experience and the indomitable human spirit. Darkness blanketed the battlefield as Major Song's M1 Abrams tank led the night assault. Through his thermal imaging system, the world appeared in shades of orange and black, with enemy positions glowing like beacons against the cool night air. The alien forces, confident in their quantum scanning technology, had no idea they were about to face an attack they couldn't see coming. "All units, maintain radio silence," Song whispered into his comm system. "Move to your designated positions." 20 tanks crept forward through the darkness, their engines muffled by special sound-dampening systems. The aliens' quantum scanners swept the area repeatedly, but they were designed to detect advanced energy signatures, not the simple heat and motion that thermal imaging captured. "Target spotted, 2 o'clock," Song's gunner reported softly. Through the thermal sights, they could see an alien patrol hovering above the ground, its crew completely unaware of the danger lurking below. "Hold position," Song ordered. "Wait for the rest to join them." More alien vehicles appeared, their anti-gravity systems humming quietly in the night air. They moved in their usual perfect formation, following patterns that had become predictable to the human forces. Their quantum scanners continued sweeping uselessly through the atmosphere, unable to penetrate the natural interference caused by Earth's magnetic field. "Target acquired," Song's gunner announced calmly. The targeting computer had already calculated the lead, accounting for the alien vehicle's movement and speed. "Fire." The night erupted in flame as the tank's main gun roared. The depleted uranium round struck the alien vehicle before its crew could react, turning their advanced technology into a fireball that lit up the darkness. Before the flames had even begun to die, 2 more tanks fired, claiming their own targets. "All units, engage at will," Song commanded. "Remember your training." The battlefield came alive as M1 Abrams tanks emerged from their hiding spots, their thermal imaging systems allowing them to fight as effectively in darkness as in daylight. The aliens, caught completely by surprise, tried to activate their energy weapons, but they were firing blindly into the night. "They never expected this," Song muttered as he watched another alien vehicle explode. "They thought they were too advanced for primitive thermal imaging." The aliens' quantum scanners, which could supposedly detect objects through solid matter in space, were being defeated by simple atmospheric interference. Their crews were firing desperately at muzzle flashes, but the tanks were already moving to new positions before the energy beams could reach them. "Target their command vehicle," Song ordered his gunner. Through the thermal sight, he could see the larger alien craft trying to coordinate a defense. "Show them what primitive technology can do." The gunner's response was silent but effective. The command vehicle's shields flared briefly before the depleted uranium round tore through them, turning the sophisticated craft into an expanding ball of superheated gas. Chaos erupted among the alien forces. Without central coordination, their vehicles began moving randomly, making them even easier targets for the thermal-guided weapons of the M1 Abrams tanks. Some tried to gain altitude, only to be picked off by precisely aimed fire from below. "They're running," someone announced over the radio as the remaining alien vehicles began a panicked retreat. "Don't let them regroup," Song ordered. "Push forward." The tanks advanced through the darkness, their crews working with practiced efficiency. Each target was acquired, tracked, and eliminated with mechanical precision. The aliens' advanced technology, which had seemed so impressive in daylight, was proving worthless in the face of simple, reliable thermal imaging. "This is why we keep the old ways," Song told his crew as they pursued the fleeing aliens. "Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." By the time dawn began to break, the battlefield was littered with the burning wreckage of alien vehicles. Their quantum scanners, anti-gravity drives, and energy weapons had been defeated by technology they had dismissed as primitive centuries ago. Song stood in his commander's hatch, watching the sun rise over the devastation. His gunner was already checking the thermal imaging system, ensuring it was ready for the next battle. The aliens had learned a harsh lesson about underestimating human technology. They thought we were primitive because we kept using what works, Song said to his crew. They never understood that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. As his tank rolled back to the forward base, Song couldn't help but smile. The aliens had brought their most advanced technology to Earth, only to be defeated by targeting systems they had abandoned as obsolete. It was a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the most advanced, but the one you can count on when everything else fails. The night assault had proven that human ingenuity, combined with reliable technology, could overcome any advantage the aliens thought they had. As the sun rose fully over the battlefield, Song knew that the aliens would be rethinking their entire approach to warfare. They had learned the hard way that primitive didn't mean ineffective, and that humans had very good reasons for keeping the technology they trusted. Dawn broke over the plains outside Seoul, revealing hundreds of M1 Abrams tanks advancing in perfect formation. The once proud alien fleet had been reduced to a fraction of its original size, their remaining ships clustering defensively around Commander Kyo's command vessel. The morning air filled with the sound of tank engines as humanity prepared for what would be the final battle. From his command tank, Captain Lee Jin watched the alien forces through his periscope. Their hovering vehicles no longer moved with the same confidence they had shown during first contact. The aliens had learned harsh lessons about human warfare, paid for in destroyed ships and shattered pride. All units in position, his radio crackled. Awaiting your command. Lee Jin took a deep breath, remembering the alien commander's sneering face from that first meeting. Now, after weeks of brutal combat, the aliens had lost their arrogance, but still refused to admit defeat. Begin the advance, he ordered. Show them everything we've learned about their tactics. The M1 Abrams tanks moved forward in waves, using every trick and tactic they had developed during the conflict. Smoke screens confused the alien sensors. Coordinated artillery fire forced their ships to move in predictable patterns. Each tank crew worked with the precision that came from generations of warfare experience. Commander Kyo's forces tried to respond, their energy weapons lighting up the morning sky. But the human tanks had learned how to avoid the deadly beams, never staying still long enough to be targeted. Their depleted uranium rounds tore through alien shields that had never been designed to stop kinetic weapons. Target their command ship, Lee Jin ordered as his tank crested a hill. End this. 30 tanks fired simultaneously, their rounds converging on Kyo's vessel from different angles. The alien ship shields flared brilliantly before failing, and the massive vessel crashed to the ground in a spectacular explosion. The remaining alien forces, seeing their commander defeated, began to retreat. But this time, there would be no escape. The M1 Abrams tanks had positioned themselves carefully, cutting off every avenue of retreat. Within hours, the last alien vehicle had either surrendered or been destroyed. 2 days later, Captain Lee Jin stood in the same briefing room where the conflict had begun. But this time, he faced a very different alien delegation. Ambassador Min, who had replaced the defeated Kyo, looked at the assembled human officers with genuine respect. We were wrong, Min admitted, his translator conveying the humility in his voice. Your tanks, your tactics, they're not primitive. They're perfected. We mistook simplicity for weakness and paid a heavy price for our arrogance. Lee Jin nodded, remembering the battles that had led to this moment. Our technology may seem basic to you, but it represents centuries of refinement. Every feature of our tanks, every tactic we use, was purchased with the blood and experience of countless warriors. Min moved to the window, looking out at the M1 Abrams tanks still patrolling the perimeter. We thought we had outgrown the need for such weapons. We believed our advanced technology made us invincible. Instead, we learn that true military power comes not from having the most advanced weapons, but from knowing how to use the weapons you have. The peace treaty that followed would reshape humanity's place in the galaxy. Earth's military expertise, particularly in armored warfare, became legendary among alien civilizations. The M1 Abrams tank, once mocked as primitive, was now studied by alien military academies as an example of perfect weapon design. As the sun set over the scared battlefield, Li Jin watched tank crews celebrating their victory. They had done more than just defend Earth. They had taught the galaxy a lesson about human ingenuity. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective, and underestimating an enemy's capabilities was the gravest military mistake of all. They thought we were primitive because we still use tanks, he told his assembled officers. They never understood that we kept using tanks because we had made them perfect. The alien ships departed Earth's orbit that evening, leaving behind a changed galaxy. Humanity had proven that true military power didn't come from having the most advanced technology, but from understanding the fundamental principles of warfare. The M1 Abrams tank, that supposedly primitive weapon, had become a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. As night fell over the Korean peninsula, the sound of tank engines could still be heard, not in combat, but in victory patrols. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged triumphant, teaching the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate human ingenuity, no matter how simple it might appear. The war was over, but its impact would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. Earth's primitive tanks had defeated an alien armada, and in doing so, had earned humanity's place among the stars.